Hello, my name is Shane Martin. I'm a psychologist and I'm passionate about the use of psychology, evidence-based psychology, to help people help themselves. And in the current climate, we need to help ourselves as much as humanly possible. I'm delighted to team up with the National Dairy Council today to give you some tips about how to avoid social isolation. You see, in truth, people need people. We are each other's greatest resource. And we know from the studies into the most resilient people on the globe, the people who defied the odds and achieved greatness despite adversity, the people who kept themselves together when the world seemed to be falling apart. We now know from science and from investigating such people that the secret ingredient to those success stories was the fact that they leaned on other people during that time of crisis and challenge. So at the moment, it's been recommended that we adhere to social distancing. It's been recommended that people, for instance, 70 years and older, stay in their homes. That recommendation seems to go against the very grain, the very essence of who we are as human beings. So we need to work our way around it. We can't stop being social because we need each other. And as I already said, particularly during the tough times. What's been recommended is not social isolation. It's the avoidance of physical one-to-one contact. And it's important to be aware of that. There is a difference. We may not be able to enter someone's home, a home of a father or mother who's elderly, or an uncle or an aunt or a neighbour who's, I suppose, more vulnerable with some underlying health condition. We may not be able to enter their homes, but that doesn't mean we can't call to see them. And we can chat through the window pane, and we can also talk if the door is ajar. And there's nothing whatsoever to suggest that we can't talk to people outside once that 2-metre guideline in terms of distance is being adhered to. So it's not about not calling to people anymore. It's about maybe calling a little bit more often than we used to, because it's a different kind of communication that we're now being allowed to do. It'll never be the same as what we did previously, but it's so important to keep an eye on each other during these times and to remain social, even if it's through different formats. I think another tip I would give is that there are people who need medicines, who need groceries, who need certain supplies on an ongoing basis. And if those people are not allowed to leave their homes, they need someone else to fetch those goods for them. And it's important for family members to check in on that. And if the person who is being restricted in terms of movement lives on their own, I think a good neighbour should check in. And that's what needs to be happening. And I have to say that I'm very heartened by the fact that communities are rising to that challenge. So if medicines are needed, maybe you may have to check with your GP as to whether you need some medicines and maybe a couple of weeks' supplies so that you have them there. Check that with your GP and maybe that prescription can be organised for you. In terms of groceries, maybe you were accustomed to going down and buying whatever groceries you needed for that particular day. You probably need to have to start buying groceries for a week or two, just to ensure that you have everything in the fridge and presses that you need to have your usual meals, etc. And An Post are doing an excellent, service now, in that the postman that visits people, particularly those who are in isolated areas. You can arrange for that postman or postwoman, indeed, to call in on those people. It's only a case of going online to onpost.ie and filling out a form. An Post are also exploring ways to deliver the daily newspaper to people who are isolated up that bendy road or wherever. And you can pay for the newspaper online, and An Post are going to deliver it free of charge. I think that's incredible and very noble sense of community that we're talking about there. And I think one website you need to check on is alone.ie. They are really stepping up to the plate in the current crisis. And there is a phone number that you should ring if you want any help or guidance, or if you have worries or anxieties, if you need things that you can't access. And that number is 0818 222-024. That's 0818-222-024. And a team of volunteers throughout Ireland, in every county of Ireland, will come and help you in whatever those needs are that they can be met. We still have phones, be that the landline or be it our own mobile phone. So if we can't meet each other physically, as in entering each other's homes or visiting each other in the pubs or wherever, I think it's very, very important that we keep in contact with each other through whatever means we have available. So, if you have FaceTime or Skype or the latest technology, I think everyone's talking about is Zoom. And if you have an ability to use those things, I think you probably should use them more often than ever before, just to compensate in some way for what we can no longer do in terms of, I suppose, one-to-one contact. And if, there is someone who lives on their own that who has a mobile phone, but maybe is not brilliant at FaceTime or is not too sure about how to download Skype, you can still give a mini lesson or maybe a few mini lessons to them through the window pane or through the door if it's ajar or at that acceptable distance of 2 meters. And maybe you could teach them something and you could open new doors of communication for that person during the coming weeks, which would be of great, great help to them. Some older people are worried about the pension. And again, there's great flexibility around this due to the current climate, in that person can nominate a temporary agent to collect the pension for them. And that 6-week holding period has been temporarily lifted due to the current pandemic. So make inquiries about that and don't worry about it, because there's a solution to all these things and people are being innovative to help you. The other thing I think it's very, very important is to be aware that social distancing does not mean being housebound. It is recommended for people who are older or maybe people who are vulnerable or who have an underlying health condition. It's recommended that you stay at home, that you don't be as social in the way you used to be. But it's very important that you get exercise. In fact, daily exercise improves mood, reduces anxiety, and helps us sleep better. That's a scientific fact, not an old wives' tale. So if you are someone who has been accustomed to walking around the village, walking around your fields, taking your dog for a walk, it would be very unwise to all of a sudden stay at home watching the television every day or lying in your bed longer than you should. It's even more important for you now to come up with some other way to exercise. If you have the shed, go out to the shed and do your normal work. A polytunnel, if you have a balcony, sit out on the balcony and get your fresh air. But if you can, try to get a daily walk in, even if that just means walking around the house a few times in a given day. It's better to do that than to be doing nothing at all, because your system needs that exercise to keep the hormones which reduce stress, to keep them active. And we do need to, manage that stress as best we can. So, although this is a very challenging time in our history, we should never underestimate our potential to cope. And despite the recommendations where we are not meant to be meeting people on a one-to-one basis like we used to, we still can be social. In fact, we have to rise to the challenge of doing social differently. And I'm convinced that we all can do that. We can mind ourselves and we can also mind other people. Keep well.